The first of the finals here at the Arlington Stadium brings us out onto track for the minibike category. The championship title itself already settled in 2017 with 2 finals to spare. Neil McQueen unbeaten from the opening 6 rounds of the season. The race therefore in the series standings overall, and specifically for 2nd and 3rd in the championship podium, is still wide open behind him. Joe Banks leading that little group on 78 points ahead of Andrew Smith on 72, Lucia Orcott, Jeremy Skip and Mike Fisher all also in contention. As I said, it's the penultimate point scoring opportunity of the season here for the mini bikes. In all of the other categories, this is the deciding round, and it could go some way towards deciding who will feature on the series podium at the end of this campaign. Riders slotting in across the start line for this grand final then. Heat points all but forgotten about, but do determine the seeding positions through to the grand final. Of course, we had a 2-grid entry during the heat stages, so we have lost a few of the riders already, with only the top 12 marching on and to the final. First choice of starting position, top seeding place went to Neil McQueen, unbeaten during the heat stages, 3 rides and 3 wins. The winner of heats 2, 8 and 15. Next up to choose a starting position was Joe Banks. He finished 6 points behind Neil McQueen during the heat stages, the winner of heat number 9. Jeremy Skip now moves into line alongside those 2 riders. He was the winner of heat number 16 last time out. And the winner of heat number 1, Andrew Smith, will be next up to choose a starting position on the number 34 bike. And I suspect that we'll see him lining up off the outside of the front row. Next qualifiers were Lucia Orcott, Tara Henry, Johnny McKeever and Mike Fisher. Suspect we'll see those riders lining up off the middle row, and then John Dyer, Randall Thomas, Darren Legg and Ross Jackson qualifying through in that order. And as I said, you'd expect them to comprise the rear row of the grid. Waiting for the 4th seed, Andrew Smith, to line up at the start line and select a starting position, and then we can start to build up to the race action here. It's the penultimate round of the season in the mini bike category, of course. They've still got their deciding round to come later on in the campaign. The other categories all being decided this weekend here at the Arlington Stadium in Eastbourne. It's the 8th round of the campaign for the DTRA. It's only the 7th final of the season in the mini bike category. Finally, we get the number 34 up to the start line. He initially moved into position on the middle row, then realised that the outside of the front row was still vacant and slots in. The rest of the riders now moving into line. Lucia Orcott off the 3rd starting position there on the middle row, perhaps a little bit of a surprise, leaving the outside run open to Tara Henry. Directly on the inside of her now is Johnny McKeever, and the inside of that middle row will be Mike Fisher. Don't think he'll be too disappointed about that. A look at the lineup in full then. Neil McQueen off the inside of the front row, Joe Banks alongside, then Jeremy Skip and Andrew Smith. The middle row, Mike Fisher, Johnny McKeever, Lucia Orcott and Tara Henry, and then the back row, Randall Thomas, Ross Jackson, Darren Legg and John Dyer. The penultimate round of the season. Will the unbeaten run of Neil McQueen finally come to an end? He has the pole, the inside of the front row. He hasn't made the best of starts, and it's Joe Banks who's going to get down to the first turn first. Banks leads it then, cutting back to the inside, coming off the second bend. Neil McQueen trying to send a move down the inside into turn 3. Good race going on here for 4th position as well, with Lucia Orcott having moved through well and now moving to blocking out Andrew Smith, who actually made a decent run down to the first turn, but too far to come from the outside line, and he has slipped back down to 5th position. At the moment, Neil McQueen has no answer to Joe Banks, who's leading the way out in front. Banks leading, steady ride on the opening lap. McQueen keeping up a good pursuit. The closest race at the moment still for 4th position between the 209 Lucia Orcott and the number 34 Andrew Smith, the only rider who started on the front row of the grid who isn't still in the top 4 positions, because it's Jeremy Skip who sits up in 3rd place at the moment. Real midfield pack going on further down the order, but the top 5 have broken clear of that, and the race further back at the moment is for 6th and 7th positions. But as I said, a real train or a group of riders further down the order, but that's not affecting the front running battle. And at the moment it's Joe Banks who looks set to become only the 2nd different grand final winner of 2017 as he sits out in front ahead of Neil McQueen. Could he become the first rider to get the better of Neil McQueen in 2017? Separate race for the final step of the podium at the 7th final of the season for the Minibikes, as Lucia Orcott thinks about a move down the inside of Jeremy Skip. Skip closes the door. Orcott then will run slightly wider on the top bend, attempting to gain in ground. Skip's gone to the inside, now into turn 1. Orcott might be able to get the cutback manoeuvre coming off the pit turn. Does get a good run off turn 2, and Lucia Orcott comes through for 3rd position. Best ride of the day from her perhaps so far. A first opportunity to move through into the podium that she's had, and it's not been a great day in terms of point scoring during the heats, but that is an excellent effort in the final from Lucia Orcott to come through in the latter stages. But the big surprise of that race, defeat for Neil McQueen, with Joe Banks picking up the 20 championship points then ahead of Neil McQueen in 2nd for 16, 14 going the way of Lucia Orcott, Jeremy Skip and Andrew Smith rounding out the top 5 ahead of Johnny McKeever, who eventually wins that best of the rest battle. But what a good result that is for Joe Banks in the context of the championship, and specifically his fight for 2nd in the series standings, a position he consolidates with victory at the 7th final of the season for the Minibikes with the DTRA.